The thread story is actually quite interesting. And for those who've been under a rock, obviously this is the big Zuck's attempt to enter the market where that or space that Twitter's inhabiting due to Twitter's current sort of problems, shall we say, in terms of how it's going. And it had a bit of an explosive start. A whole bunch of people went over. Maybe it's kind of cooling off now over time and all of that, but it kind of raises some interesting questions because Twitter was basically dominant. There was no one else that was going to knock it off its perch, and due to some what you would call self-inflicted own goals or wounds or anything that I guess Elon's been driving over at Twitter. Obviously Zuck was sitting in the background taking notes, and he kind of thought, oh, maybe there's an opportunity here. And look, I don't for one second think that if a scenario develops that the space inhabited by Twitter is taken over by Zuckerberg, that that's going to be anyway a good thing, because it won't be. But I did find it quite interesting that, it's almost like he was the good guy all of a sudden, because Elon was like doing so poorly with Twitter, and Zuck's like stuck his hand up and gone, "Hey, I've got something over here," even though it almost looks exactly the same as Twitter.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I personally think Twitter's been weak probably for the last 10 years, and its influence has been sort of, waning. And then Elon came along and just shook the whole thing up. And I think maybe he's throwing too many basics out with the bathwater there. You know, when something like Meta comes along and copies a platform, which is effectively what they've done with Threads, they know what they're doing. They've done the sums because, they're not going to do it if there isn't any advantage to it. They smell or sense a weakness. They smell blood. They're going in for the kill. And, they don't even need to get everyone from Twitter across to Threads to make it a win. They just need to get enough. And I think what we're seeing here is consolidation in the tech industry and consolidation in the socials, because if Meta really gets any degree of success through Threads, then that will, they'll effectively dominate the entire social spectrum.
And that's the part where I said I don't know if that's going to be a good thing by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, we all remember what happened to Microsoft in the 90s.
A little bit of antitrust thrown on top.
Maybe. And what, can you see a Zuckerberg Foundation in the future?
Yeah, the second half of the big story. But the one thing I did want to highlight here is that I actually think it still doesn't bode well for Meta and Facebook, because in the sense that it's kind of continuing to highlight Facebook's irrelevancy, because the biggest successes, at least from what I can see in terms of what's driving Facebook, yeah, they're probably still getting financial compensation through Facebook. That's pretty good. But it's actually the ancillary apps that had nothing to do with Facebook that, like you said, they're either bought out, these apps like Instagram or WhatsApp, or this kind of copy and paste thing with Threads, which actually aren't really part of Facebook's, core existence, so to speak. And I would just find it amusing that they have to pivot to something that, like, what happens if like Facebook goes by the way of the dinosaur, because people are just like, I actually find, like I said, its usefulness as a platform compared to some of the others. Yes, it's still being used, but not in the way that it used to be used. And I would just find it amusing, or fate or whatever, that Facebook's success is going to be based on things they've bought or copied after the fact.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. But I think, as I say, I think what you're seeing at Meta is smart people being clever. And they're probably taking a line out of Apple's thinking, where they don't mind if they cannibalize Facebook now, because if it brings more people to Meta, they've got growth. And I think that's really what this is all about. It's creating new growth. They can go back to the shareholders and say, look, we're growing. With Threads, they've also got a sort of platform that not only sort of will appeal to Twitter, but, potentially with a little bit of a jig or a fresh up or whatever they want to do with it, can go a bit more the TikTok way too. So it's they've seen that they need to change, they need to be more flexible, and they've found a niche that they're going to water heavily and try to get to grow.
Then we'll just have to wait and see if Elon manages to strike back at some point with any of
Do you
that.
think he'll come up with a Facebook platform?
Why not? Stranger things have happened, right? All right, we might wrap it up there. It'll be interesting to see. If nothing else, it's made me even more convinced that I don't want to use social media outside of just posting when we put our new podcasts up every week. Other than that, I've got it switched off.
Yeah, I think that's very wise, especially in the modern age.